Greetings. Sitting before me is the top half, yes, the top half of the crankcase of a VF700 or VF750 Honda. So this is a 1984. It's the engine they have in the Magna and Sabre, not the Interceptor motor and not the cam-driven motor. This is the early chain-driven one. So we had an issue with this one. I'll show you in a minute here. But these 700s, the biggest issue with these is they suffer, ownership abuse. People who rev them up until they don't. People who rev them up when they're cold, and then people who refuse to use a clutch, and just general abuse like that. Like I said, shifting without a clutch, shifting with poorly adjusted clutch, just nasty habits, slamming it into gear, things like that. And damages do add up. So I do have scratch all, makes a good pointer. So show you a few things. When you slam these in and out of gear, this is what they do. They eventually chibble the shift drum. You can see that there's shiny metal here. You can see that there's more over there. I'll spin the shift drum in a little bit. That's what happens, people slamming into the gear like that. And it can get real bad, actually. You'll eventually, things like this corner, which is supposed to be nice and sharp, but still, it's got a gentle curve to it so that these round pegs of the shift forks can actually travel along it pretty nice. However, when these start taking damage, you can see that it gets really sharp like this. But eventually it'll keep chipping, like you see towards the top lip. It'll chip like that. And over time this will just round over until it's smooth like this wall over here. But this wall is factory. However, this here can be turned smooth like that over time, and then what happens is you get a really sloppy shift, and then you'll have issues going in and out of gears with this dog. This dog, I think, controls, it goes in and out of 5th and 6th, so it goes between 5th and 6th right here. So you'd start having issues going into 6th, and sometimes it might even jump back out of 6th and into 5th instead. That's kind of the issues you have. Now you can also have shift fork issues. That's the other issue with these. People not using their clutch, they'll wear out these shift forks. This engine has less than 30,000 miles on it, so these guys are actually in pretty good shape. You spec them out, and they spec out fine. I'll show you a set of forks over here that are not so fortunate. There are these guys, and these guys have issues. You can see that there is a raised ledge here. When we compare it with a normal one, there's not supposed to be any. That's how bad some of these wear when people just abuse them. These forks can also bend. Sometimes they even snap, but usually what happens is they wear out like this. And when this happens, it will definitely go in and out of gear. It won't really hold a gear, and it's almost always in second or third gear that it does this. You'll get in the first gear, fine, no problem. However, when you get into second gear, it won't always stay in second gear. Sometimes it doesn't even get into second gear. When it gets into second and doesn't stay there, that's what we call first and a half gear, where it's not all the way into second, but it's definitely not in the first. And that's not how it's supposed to be. That's caused from bad wear. And here you can see that the shift barrel doesn't have these issues, but it does have these seriously worn forks. These forks, they're supposed to have little pads on the ends here. You can see that this right here is thicker than it is down here. It's because this is what contacts the freewheeling gears here. So these pads have to have a almost snug fit inside these channels so that you can move these in and out of gear freely. They wear out, and once you start, the second you see wear here in the arch, so anywhere off of the pad, anywhere in here, your forks are bad, you need new ones. It'll never shift like it did when it was new again. We'll go back to my other motor, because that had some other issues. The biggest issue it had was we had it running, and when it had a few issues. Whenever you turned it one direction or the other, so when you're on the bike taking a turn, leaning a little bit either direction, one of the two directions it would make a lot of noise. I think it turned the starter backwards, so we had fixed that. But relating to the transmission, it had a bigger problem. When it was at idle, you could hear some of the gears chattering. You see, this one moves back and forth a bunch, and it chatters. Well, it would do a few things. It didn't seem to rub against the shift fork, which is good. We don't want to see that. These are carefully planned so that the shift fork, in theory, will never touch the gears. However, this guy still slides back and forth, and it makes a lot of chatter. And it did this because there's a snap ring here that had popped off. The snap ring that, let's see, there we are. We'll get the camera to focus because there is a snap ring here. You can see it, it's kind of like bluish. It's supposed to go inside this groove right down in here. It's supposed to lock so that this doesn't move in and out. This is a stationary gear. This one's permanently attached to the input shaft. Input shaft. However, when it moves in and out like this, it will collide with this movable gear set. So a dogged gear. This is what needs to move in and out so you can engage different speeds of the tranny. And you can see that they've been colliding because the one is rounded over here and the other is rounded over here. From it being in like this and then them catching just like that, because the snap ring or the keeper is not where it should be. So the gear would move over like this and it would be a nasty rattle. At idle you could hear it. It would be intermediate. You'd hear and that's the sound of these teeth just grinding on each other a little bit. But the second you got into first gear, this would be constant. It would be like this, and it would grind like that, and it would get tight again, and then it would grind again and again at the speed at which the engine was turning. So as you revved it up, it would get worse. You'd go from to, and at some points you'd hear it bang and buck. And the banging and bucking is the sound of this gear getting smacked back to its designed resting place. You'd hear that smashing up against there. So the second you hear any noises like that, you need to stop, turn the engine off right away, find your nearest service shop, or us. We'll gladly take care of whatever your issue is, because this is a rather uncommon one. These snap rings aren't supposed to leave their grooves. However, if someone's went and rebuilt your engine, if these snap rings aren't faced the right way, it's possible they can come out. With hard shifting, some of the other snap rings can come out, but it's pretty uncommon. You, like I said, usually it's just an issue from people who have been in there who don't know what they're doing. So, and the end result is we need this gear replaced and we need this gear replaced. When these little dogs, when the pads of these gears are a little worn, you can file them so that they're actually just straight again. But you can see that these pads are lower where they're worn than where they're not. So this one's bad too. Over here, you can see that this is rounded over. So this whole gear is bad. So we're just going to replace this entire gear set. I do have a good spare one. Because, like I said, when they're that worn, you can't grind these flat again. There's not enough material there to hold between shifts, especially when it's lower. There's you don't want to waste the time doing useless work when you had to pull the engine out of your bike, split it in half, then do all the effort of grinding to make it work, just to find out that 1,000 miles later it doesn't. So when you're taking out a V4, make your repairs last for life. Do it once, do it well, do it good. That's what we're here for. I'll grab a wrench. I'll try to turn around that shift barrel for you so you can see it. It is pretty interesting. So I believe right now we're in neutral. If I have the right wrench, we'll be able to go into second. It's going to struggle for third some because I don't have it turning. Turn it some. Go into third. There we go. And we'll go all the way up into 6. 6, I believe. I think we're at 6. There we go. Now we're in 6. Now that we're in 6, you can see more damage. There's some more chunks missing there. We'll go back a little ways. You can see another chunk missing there. So we'll replace the shift dog. More damage there on them in overdrive, like I said. But you can. There are ways of fixing that, and when it's just small chibbles like that, you can usually get away. But the issue is over time, any bad shifts are just going to continue to wear that drum like you wouldn't believe, and it'll get worse, and then you'll stop going into gears correctly, and then you'll have this kind of problem, which is no bueno. So we'll fix that. We'll make that right. I see there's a screw down in there that shouldn't be. So, there was a lot wrong with this thing, but we'll make it all right again. And then that will be the end of that. This is something that we'll be doing to all of our V4s. They all seem to have this issue. Sorry, not all of them, but a lot of them seem to have these issues. And it's almost always related to owner abuse. When these are in good care, they seem to last forever. However, when they're not, they don't last very long at all. But, we do things right around here, so we'll warranty things as such. So, we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you guys later.